Is the Pokemon Company going to be dropping a lawsuit onto the creators of Palworld? Well, this question has been a huge topic of discussion for the last couple of days due to the overwhelmingly large amount of similarities between the two games. So in today's YouTube video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into both sides of the argument to see if we can't get an idea on how this situation is going to turn out here in the next couple of weeks. So let's get into it. Before we get into this video and talking about the different arguments that are coming from this game, let's just watch the introduction trailer that Palworld released so that we can get a very small snippet of what this game looks like and maybe some of the issues that people are bringing up. So this is the Palworld Early Access launch trailer that was released on their YouTube channel. And the first thing you notice that these creatures look very similar to Pokemon. And one of them in particular, the one on the bottom left, looked very similar to what people are saying is a Wooloo. And you'll see a lot of these Pokemon, or a lot of these pals will definitely have some pretty solid similarities into the Pokemon world. And that's been a very common topic in the discussion and kind of the arguments. And to be honest, it's kind of been one of the biggest issues. If all of these creatures did not have such a similar Pokemon counterpart, people probably wouldn't have said a single thing about this game. But I think the reason why everyone has such an issue with it, or the reason why this is even being brought up, is that there are a lot of these assets that look very, very similar to Pokemon. And like that, an Electabuzz. We've got one of those look like almost like a Thundurus. We've got this guy, which would be like a Grookey. We've got an Eevee looking Pokemon. I mean, the list goes on and on. You can definitely see either, you know, where the inspiration came from or where the idea or the concept came. We don't know quite yet because, well, we haven't gone through the investigation, but those are just the similarities. Now, talking and looking at the game, there's a lot of differences between these games. I mean, obviously in Palworld, you get guns. Like, you don't get that in the Pokemon game. You can eat the pals. That is definitely not in Pokemon. So there are definitely some parts of the game that are very Pokemon-like, and there's a lot of the parts of this game that are very much un-Pokemon-like that Pokemon would probably never do, like a rocket launcher, or like I said, eating your Pokemon. And also just the way that the games are played are a little bit different. As you can see here, the Palworld game is much into building and making a base and putting the people and the minions that you catch to work. You don't do anything even remotely similar to that in the Pokemon games. There's no building a base, there's no survival aspects to the game. There are definitely some similarities with like maybe the battles and more or less like a Pokemon Legends of Arceus kind of like a similarity, but the mainstream Pokemon games, the way that they play, don't really fit with Palworld. So one of the big things that I can take out of this is that the gameplay itself is not that similar. I think that if the gameplay was very, very close to Pokemon, and with the addition of these, you know, the animations or the assets they're using being close to Pokemon, I think we would have a huge, huge issue here. But with the way that the game is set up and how different it's actually played, I think that might be one of these saving graces that Palworld does have, to be honest. Because I mean, it's a big part of the difference between the two games. And if we're talking about, you know, similarities and copyright issues and stuff like that, we also need to talk about, you know, what's different between the two games, because there are differences. So, you know, there are, like I said, there are arguments both for and against this kind of this argument that we're getting is, you know, whether or not this was a ripoff of Pokemon. Should Pokemon sue them? So yeah, that's kind of our basis of where we're going off of, the initial kind of info that we get for the game. So let's hop on over here now to the Pokemon Company. Now, a few days after Palworld released, it was notified, or at least the gaming community was notified, that Palworld was one of the absolute highest selling games on Steam, with also the highest amount of concurrent players. It was a massive, massive success. It was, I mean, by far leaps and bounds over what anybody would have suggested, and leaps and bounds past many, many other games that have released in the last couple of years. So huge success. And with that success, obviously, and with the issue with there being so many similarities between the Pokemon game and Palworld, obviously the Pokemon Company was notified. I mean, Palworld has been in, like, it's been in creation for a couple of years now. So this wasn't something that just all of a sudden was sprung up and it's only, you know, been out for a couple weeks. Pokemon Company hasn't really maybe found out about it. That is not the case. Palworld has been out for a couple of years now, and they've been releasing information about it. They've been releasing images and video. Like, it's been here. It's been around. It's been something that we have seen, and also means that the Pokemon Company has seen. And the fact that they haven't done anything up to this point is a little bit telling, to be honest. Because knowing Pokemon, they are very, very protective of their game. And they have gone after other people, and they've gone after people selling products that are very similar to Pokemon on like merchandise websites. So say like I made a Pokemon t-shirt and I try to sell on my merchandise site. There's a very good chance that Pokemon will shut that down, and they have done that in the past. So the fact that this game has been out and being created for the last couple of years without any sort of issues or things being thrown at them from Pokemon, to me is telling, because it means that either Pokemon knew about it, they've been talking with the company, who is also based in Japan. Seems like there's probably been some sort of communication between the two. And the fact that it's already gotten to the point where the game is out and being sold, like I said, is a little bit telling. So now with this statement that the Pokemon Company released, I'm taking it kind of a couple of different ways. And so we'll kind of go through, we'll read it, and then we'll kind of get what we feel like the Pokemon Company was trying to portray with this particular image or message. Inquiries regarding other companies' games. I mean, we can all tell this came out like literally 3 days after Palworld release, so it's about Palworld. But we have received many inquiries regarding another company's game released in January of 2024. Palworld. We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon intellectual property or assets in that game. So Pokemon Company has stated, which they would probably have done with just about any game that isn't built within their focus or within their grasp of gaming, like Legends of Arceus and stuff like that, or Pokemon Go. They obviously let other companies use their assets for games when it's made specifically for the Pokemon Company. I mean, look at Niantic and Pokemon Go. I mean, not Niantic. I think that Pokemon Unite. And then we have, I can't remember the company that made Pokemon Go. But again, there are different companies that make other Pokemon games, and they obviously get the assets. So what they're saying is like, yeah, we didn't give Palworld assets. They're not part of the Pokemon universe. So there's that first part. We intend to investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to the Pokemon. So basically they're saying is like, you know, we're going to be looking into it. We are going to investigate and take any measures to address any potential Pokemon asset thievery. You know, if they took a Pokemon asset and they dropped it into their game, if there's too many similarities between the PAL that we have in Palworld and a Pokemon we have in the Pokemon world, there's a good chance that they are going to either tell them to recreate it or to delete it or to change it. I mean, there's all sorts of things, but it sounds like they're going to be definitely looking into specifically the assets on Pokemon. And like we said with the beginning of the video, it's not really more or less about the gameplay, because the gameplays are very different. It's mainly seems like this argument is just based on assets of Pokemon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokemon and its world, and work to bring the world together through the Pokemon in the future. Basically saying that we very much value Pokemon, and that we will definitely keep working to keep Pokemon going into the future. That's kind of what that statement feels like to me, is that, you know, we're still very, very passionate about Pokemon, and we're not going to let it just falter or fall away. And that, you know, if we need to, we will take appropriate action to deal with issues like Palworld. So it definitely doesn't say in the statement that they're going to be dropping a lawsuit. Really all it states is that, you know, we know Palworld exists. We definitely know that we are going to investigate because of the similarities to see if there's anything that we need to deal with. And that, you know, we cherish Pokemon, and we are going to continue valuing Pokemon and protecting it. That's what this statement reads to me. Very short, not really super specific, but definitely gives us an idea that, like, they know about Palworld. So that's from the Pokemon Company. Now, so we've kind of gotten an idea of like, okay, Palworld, you know, and the creators of Palworld have definitely kind of just, they're making the game. They've been spending a couple of years making the game. Pokemon knows about Palworld, hasn't done anything up to this point. So taking that into account, it seems like there may not be too many issues with Palworld that Pokemon is super interested in. Really, it seems like it's just the asset, or the possibility of asset stealing that they would be concerned about. So now I'm curious about, because I've seen a lot of different people's opinions on Twitter about how this situation is going to play out. And I'll be honest, it's kind of funny seeing what everybody's opinions are, because there's some people that are really on this side where like Palworld stole Pokemon, destroy Palworld. And there's some people that say, you know, it's Palworld. Like, this is great. I love that Palworld is pushing the boundaries and making Pokemon finally realize that, you know, they can't continue making the same level of game without any sort of advancement or ingenuity or, you know, growth, because they've done it for so long. They've done it for so long where all the games are so similar. You know, the last game had a lot of issues and bugs. It's like, okay. The problem is the Pokemon Company hasn't had any competition for monster catching games. There hasn't been any. So if I don't have any competition, why make the game better? I already make plenty of money off of Pokemon. Why do I need to break the wheel to make more money? Well, now you need to break the wheel because somebody else already did it before you and they had a lot of success. So now I think what's going to happen is that we're going to see a little bit of push into the Pokemon Company into potentially working on what they're creating, what their product is, because it seems like there is definitely a large amount of people that want some growth from the Pokemon Company. And I don't know if we'll see any of those comments here, but I definitely know that I've seen a good chunk of those when looking into these. So we've got Kanitsu here. Oh, the Pokemon Company is going to investigate Palworld. Why don't you try innovating your franchise and stop being complacent? Oh, that's the very first comment. That was exactly what I was talking about. And that's, you know, one of the big things or big arguments in the community is that, you know, like, well, we want to see more growth from the Pokemon games. Like, we want to see them elevate into new, you know, graphics. You know, the Switch is an older type of a system. It's not an Xbox or a PlayStation. It's definitely doesn't have the same power levels, and the games kind of follow suit. You know, we had the Game Boy, you know, it's falling behind, and people want to see open world Pokemon. They want more from the franchise, and Palworld definitely did it. So this one is just about a press release. Pokemon is intended to investigate Palworld. Pokemon Company will investigate Palworld devs celebrating 10 million sales. I mean, reality is they did sell 10 million copies. They sold a ridiculously large amount of copies of Palworld in a very short amount of time. Palworld fans aren't worried about the Pokemon Company. Pokemon Company is looking at a potential copyright infringement, but Palworld's fans don't think they're going to find anything. And that's been, again, another topic of discussion is, you know, like, there are similarities, but the similarities are not enough to say it's a direct copy. And I think that's, you know, they have definitely, like, if you see some of the Palworlds or the Pals and Palworld and the different Pokemon, you can definitely look and be like, okay, I think I can find a copy of that in the Pokemon world, but every time you do, it's not a direct copy. They are different. And so there is that argument, is that, you know, like, yeah, they look the same, but they're not the same. We got Reversal. I love Reversal. This is Pokemon saying, we know Palworld exists. Can you please just stop messaging us about this already? And that, yeah, I mean, I kind of got the same kind of a feel from that original post that Pokemon posted. Was like, yes, we've gotten a lot of people saying that Palworld's here. We know about it. And we'll take a look into it. And this is another thing that I was talking about. Palworld would have been taken down without hesitation ages ago, historically, so there's no telling what'll happen next. So that doesn't, I mean, obviously, you know, like, obviously, and we said in the past, Pokemon has been pretty strict about taking stuff down, and when they want it down, they go for it and they do it quickly. So the fact that Palworld has been up for a couple of years in creation is a little bit, you're like, okay, like, are they actually going to take it down, or is it at the point where it's like Pixelmon, where they're going to not go through with it? Rev says that his gut says that the Pokemon Company International already had extensive conversations with Pock Bears. They were both in Japan. Yep, I mean, they're both Japanese companies. I mean, they're both there. And I'm sure over the years of development that they've talked at least a little bit. Logically speaking, given TPCI's reputation of notoriously striking down infringement of their copyright, I feel like they must have applied a lot of pressure on Palworld already, but I can't say that with certainty. I mean, it would make sense. Like we said, Palworld, Pokemon, or at least has been very, like, they're quick, man. They will definitely fire after somebody. So the fact that it's been around this long either says that Palworld has been working with them to make sure that they don't cause any issues, or that they have, you know, I don't know. It's a weird, like, because we don't know exactly what's happened behind closed doors. And that's kind of where we're kind of just making guesses at this point. But as Joe Merrick stated, there's no way TPCI had access to everything either. So it's going to be interesting to see what'll happen next. And that is also very true. I mean, obviously, if you're in talks with Pokemon and you're making a game, you don't have to show them everything. There are definitely things you can keep secret. But now that the game is 100% out, there are no more secrets to be had. So maybe that's the reason why we're getting a little bit more aggressive with some of these investigations. Could be. Definitely I love Rev's take on it. That was really good. That was a good take. One of the fastest growing games in history on the Steam platform is under investigation by the Pokemon Company. Some have called Palworld Pokemon with guns. Yes, it is definitely a monster game with guns, but like we said before, the games play so differently that I cannot walk into Palworld. If I were to walk into Palworld, I would not go, this is a Pokemon game. No Pokemon game has ever been built the way that Palworld is, and with the mechanics and the game structure, it's not it at all. I would never walk into Palworld and say, yep, this looks like Pokemon Ruby. There's no gym battles, or like there isn't that kind of an aspect to the game. So like, yeah and no. Let's see what Philly says here. You aren't guilt tripping me at all. I worked my ass off to be seen and recognized by the Pokemon Company for over 7 years. Pokemon Company hasn't messaged me and told me to stop playing this game. I'll be playing Palworld and Pokemon. Cry about it. I mean, Philly Beats has definitely been one of those creators who definitely jumped onto the wagon for Palworld really quick, and was actually one of the reasons why I started playing it. I saw him playing about it and talking about it. I was like, yo, that looks cool. But yeah, I mean, you know, even Pokemon creators are hopping over playing the game. They're finding it interesting. They're finding it fun. And even Philly said, you know, I've been working with Pokemon for many years, making content, traveling, and they haven't said a single thing to him. So it's good. I mean, that's solid to hear. I mean, I'm glad that they're not, you know, micromanaging the creators that they have and making it so that they can't play specific games they want to. That's great. I love that Philly's exploring Palworld. Philly's a great content creator. And I love his insight into games, because he always dives really deep, and he doesn't beat around the bush. I mean, you can see from that tweet, he didn't beat around the bush. He could care less. He will always tell you how he feels. And I think that's one of the big things that I enjoy about Philly's content, is that there's no fluff, man. He just gets right to it. So what I've seen, I think there was some TikTok videos from some lawyers talking about what they think as far as the ramifications from Palworld and Pokemon. And even they have stated that there's probably not so much of a case in this one, and that probably actually just ends up coming down to how the judge ends up feeling in this case. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of left or right. Like, either you think it's going to happen or you don't think it's going to happen. There hasn't really seemed to be a lot of people just on the fence like, I don't know what's going to happen. Definitely seems to be like a lot of people have opinions on what is going to be happening in this game. And I'm curious, down in the comments of this video, please let me know what you think about this particular situation. Do you think that Palworld is in the wrong? Do you think that they are going to get copyright struck by Pokemon and have a lawsuit on their hands? Do you think that Palworld has done nothing wrong and that it is just healthy competition for Pokemon and something that they've needed for many years? Let me know down in the comments. I would absolutely love to read about them, see what you all think about this Pokemon, or this issue or this debate that's happening between Palworld and Pokemon, because it is absolutely a ton of fun. I love scrolling through, reading everybody's like comments through Twitter. It's been a lot of fun researching, man. So let me know down in the comments. I'd love to take a look at it. And if you like this kind of content discussing like Pokemon issues or just overall issues in general, check out the video that's on the screen right now. In this video, I talked about Pokemon and the hacked Pokemon, and whether or not hacked Pokemon are ruining the Pokemon games. It was a really fun topic to talk about, and it's very similar to this kind of a video. So if you like this video, hop on over to that one. I'm sure you like that one as well. But again, thank you all so much for coming out to this YouTube video. Make sure you hit that like, that subscribe, and that notification bell so you get notified when I drop more videos just like this one. And I hope you have a fantastic day. Peace out, everyone.